Well, hello everybody and happy Thursday to you. I'm having a great day because I get to spend some time with you. It started off a little rocky, but some days of the week, that's what will happen. So let's talk about the financial markets because I know all eyes are what's happening with the stock market, as well as I'm going to give you some news on the stimulus package today as well. The Dow closed down 405 points. Not so great. NASDAQ closed down also 221 points as we see continued weakness and pullback in the tech industry. We see names such as Amazon, Netflix, Microsoft, Facebook, as well as Netflix and having some weakness today. In fact, Tesla dropped quite a bit earlier today. Still ended up on a low day, but not quite as dramatic as it was earlier today. Lots of things happening, but most importantly, we're talking about two things in particular. Let's talk about unemployment numbers. And this is something that certainly we're going to talk about more later on during the show. But unemployment numbers came out. Now, do know the unemployment numbers that came out today were certainly a lot better than we saw a month ago. But again, they were disappointing. And so the market definitely didn't like that information. And thus, that's also being factored in as well. Now, the other news that I find very disturbing and quite honestly somewhat frustrating. You heard me talk about it yesterday, and that is regarding the stimulus check, the next round of stimulus checks, because we know many Americans continue to be struggling, not able to get back to work as normal. They're also juggling social distancing with their children and everything else, and they're really looking and hoping for that stimulus check to arrive sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, the kids in the government can't play friendly because, again, there's still no resolution. Nothing has been signed. It's already Thursday. And if you remember, we were told that something would be signed this week in hopes that there would be checks coming to more Americans come in October. Didn't happen, unfortunately. Now, at this point, it looks like the stimulus check might be a long shot, which is, of course, never a good thing. But today is still a really good day. You know why it's a great day? Is because today I have two friends joining us, two experts in their industries. They happen to be very good friends of mine. And they actually got a chance to meet each other more in detail yesterday, because today we are talking about tips for a safe and harmonious workplace and what you can do for you and your employees to get along during this pandemic, even during normal times. How can we foster a very positive work experience? Now, you've actually, for those of you who've joined us on the tweet chat, you may have seen this number before. I'm going to have Curtis share this statistic with you right now. So the average person spends more than 90,000 hours working over their lifetime. It's a pretty big number. And I don't know about you, but I really think that we deserve to enjoy the place that we work at. In addition, you may have seen me yesterday on Good Day LA talking about how to juggle working from home and helping our children distance learn. And one of the things that I mentioned yesterday was the importance of having your children see that you actually enjoy work. And it's a positive experience because they're watching us each and every moment. I've got two experts that are going to help us with just that. Give you some things to think about, maybe benefit you, your employees, and your company continue to do well. Let's welcome, first off, Jana Morrin, CEO, co-founder of Speakfully. Jana, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Well, it's certainly a big topic. I know this is something that you and I have talked briefly about, the importance of the importance of a positive work environment. And certainly as the CEO of Speakfully, we want to learn more about your company, we want to know what you do, but certainly we think we're grateful for the work that you and your colleagues are doing. Let's bring in Paul Haury as well, founder of Heart-Based Leading. Now, Paul, for those of you who don't know, is certainly an expert in this space. He is someone that many companies go to for coaching on how to do just that, making sure that work environment is positive, someplace that you love to go to, that you can celebrate and be very, very excited about that you're part of this organization. So these two leaders in this space, especially for those of you who are watching that run your own business or maybe even cover stories like this, these are two people I think you'll want to get to know. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with you, Paul. This is a question I love to learn about. I want you to tell us a little bit of your backstory, Paul, if you don't mind. I mean, I know you didn't just, I know because we're friends, you didn't just wake up one day and decide, you know what, I'm gonna coach and help people feel better and reach their full potential. How did you get to where you are today?
I'm going to make this a compressed version. Um, I've always had this focus on we should be happy where we are. And think of it in terms of like even in this COVID moment. You go to work and you're going to take what you feel from that and to go home with it. And you give it to your family regardless. Now, of course, they're both in the same place, so you're giving it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the making that space an environment where people belong, where they then can go into their focus and their why in togetherness, because that's what feels good. We're kind of meant for that way. And I used to be an IT director where I actually dealt with the technology and R&D and stuff for my former company. But what it came down to was, technology is going to change every 2 years. We really haven't changed for 50 to 100,000 years. I'm going to bank on the social behavioral science side of things for how people really get along and have fun at their work. So, and that just led me ultimately to being ahead of people and then going out on my own to help other companies.
Head of people, Paul. And I also see a sign right behind you that says you belong with a big red heart. Yeah. So I do feel like that sort of sums up what you do very, very well. And for those of you who are watching, I just want to mention that we are going live currently on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn. So we are monitoring your comments and we welcome your feedback and any questions that you might have. We'll make sure to circle back at the end of the show and throughout the show, in fact. Jana, let's hear about your story. I know your story is a little bit different. You're not head of people, but tell us how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. So I had a previous employer of my own. I had a personal experience at that organization where I was reporting to a C-level employee. I, was really on a good trajectory with my life and my career, which is something that I've always been very passionate about. And, went through some mistreatment of my own. And after leaving that organization, there was a lot of thought that went into what I wish I would have had in those moments, in addition to what I wish the organization would have done differently as someone that was going through that experience, and kind of melded that together to what Speakfully is now and the platform that we are. So a lot of the things that, I went through during those times is kind of embedded into the product itself that we offer now to organizations.
Sure. And we're going to learn more about that for sure. One thing that we know that all of us are, well, not all of us, many of us are sheltering in place during the pandemic. Obviously, many of us, this isn't what my typical office would look like. And I think many of you who are watching would agree that we're in very different times, right? We've heard the term, we're in it together. We hear that this will pass, things will get better. But it doesn't make some moments, like I had this morning even, sometimes it's a little hard, right? Paul, I would love to hear your thoughts on what things to focus on during the pandemic. What are some important things that you think all executives, all employees, maybe even company heads should be thinking about to get us through this time of working, mostly at home?
Oh, this came up in a seminar yesterday. The thing that people miss right now is the togetherness, the belonging. Guys, like a broken record. That they had for the workplaces they got to go to, and with all the social messaging of social distance, social stay away, it's dangerous, and so on, it triggers this fear response in people, and so their brains are going, oh no, at every instance, and that triggers us to see with that set of rose-colored glasses. So extra effort from the leadership side to do the touch points and reach outs. I mean, people were sitting in this seminar going, oh, we're at least talking to each other. And in that isolation, and now let's go with, now you're also the teacher for your children at home. And that's another load of stress. And when you combine that with your fear, it just can get very, very weighty. So the way you get out of that is reaching out to each other and making contact. And that's really important for the leadership to do, to go and say, not how are you getting your stuff done, It's how are you? What can I do to help? Even if there's nothing you can do to help, offering to help lets somebody know you're with them. So reaching out.
I love that, Paul. So offering to help really is sort of the first step. And offering to help isn't that difficult a thing to do. We just need to be mindful. I almost think that we should literally, Paul, just get a post-it and make a happy face and say, offer your help today.
Mhm.
Jana, I know, we've talked about this before, but I'd love to share, you obviously, Speakfully have created software for employees to share their feelings, right? Sometimes there are feelings that aren't the most comfortable and easiest to share, but having a safe haven where they are able to express these feelings before having to go to an online system or going on social media for the world to know about all the problems within the workplace, right? So when
Right.
you examine the many clients that you work with and employees of those companies, what are some tips or advice that you would give to a business owner during this time? Like Paul said, offer to help. What do you think?
Yeah. I agree with Paul. Kind of in the same token, be vulnerable to your employees. If you want them to be vulnerable and tell you when things are bothering them, you should do the same with them. And then, one thing that I always say to any prospects or any organizations that I talk to is you don't know what you don't know. So don't ever assume that you know what people are experiencing and going through. And just because, you aren't hearing from the employees doesn't mean that there aren't things happening or they aren't feeling a certain way or they might not be going through something. To Paul's point, people, their lives are very different. They are experiencing different things. And I think that it's not that the issues go away from having being on site versus being remote now. They're just different. So it's just acknowledging those, and again, like Paul said, reach out and make sure that you understand and know that everyone's okay, and they know that you're listening and that you care.
I love that. I think that's so true. In fact, earlier today, there was actually on CNBC, I'm part of the CNBC Financial Council. And one thing that they did today that I really was excited to watch was they did something called Inclusion Forum. It was wonderful. It was actually hosted by Sharon Epperson, and they were having a conversation with CEOs of multiple companies talking about how can we foster a more positive environment that's more inclusive, that includes everybody. And Paul, I really want to talk about this because one thing one of the leaders said was it's important to sort of be vulnerable, like Janet had just said, being vulnerable, be out there, share about yourself, that we're not just one dimensional. It's not like you're just a person who signs my check, but I actually want to learn more about you. And as an employee, I feel like I'm more invested because you're invested in me and vice versa, like taking that time to ask that question. Can you find happiness at work? I certainly think in our work, I think we're actually very happy. How do more companies sort of bring in that happiness? So even though that we're, working virtually and we're not being in the same room as each other all the time, how do we do that?
So to qualify, we're not talking about foo-foo happiness. We're talking about real happiness where sometimes you work your butt off and it's really hard, but because you did it together, you go and you celebrate. And like this is what's tough now is you can't go out with your coworker and just go get a beer anywhere. Frankly, why go to I do wish I could go to my friendly bars again, but it's just not the smartest thing to do. And instead of social distancing, it's remote belonging. I want to share the love and make that contact, even though I can't go out and clink a glass. And so what that means is maybe get into a Zoom meeting with somebody, pair up, break out your drink of choice, whether it's alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and cheers each other, and at least go to that presence level. And in doing that, you're celebrating the wins. And just because it seems like, even like with COVID, it's so far off, are we going to get out of this? You know what? Celebrate the small wins and the connections you have, because there is progress being made. And no, it won't be as fast as what we've been used to before COVID, but celebrate the wins with each other. And then even at times commiserate the losses. Oh, we really messed up on that one. So what can we do different now? Let's learn from this. And just going, instead of sitting there by yourself going, I suck. Even if you go together and you say, we suck is way better, because then you can laugh about it in the end.
Okay, I love that. So, I feel like we should celebrate we sucking sometimes. I think that was one of the catch-alls that I got from Paul. But I couldn't agree with you more. I do think right now we should, like you said, celebrate the wins. And it is certainly harder because it would be so great just to go and hang out and do whatever. I'd probably love to take my team for really good food, celebrate with cookies. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's more my thing, Paul, but everybody has their own thing. One of the things that I got today, actually, when I was watching this episode, when I was watching CNBC, Caroline, I think her name was, she was the CEO of Essence. And she said, one thing that she does is she actually puts a list of, I think, 10 or 15 questions, and she hands it to every new employee and says, pick 10 or 5 or 6 of these and answer them. And there'll be questions like, for example, who's your hero? Who's your shiro? Mm-hmm. What's your happy place? What's your not happy place? And then she says, and then I will do the same, and I will offer you my answers.
That is so cool.
That is cool, right? I thought of you when I heard that.
And what happens there is now you're not a transactional piece of labor. You're a human being. And man, go to that vulnerability that came up a moment ago. That's the space where when you're vulnerable, that somebody else can go, oh, it's okay for me to be me. Yes. And there are so many things in the being me that will help the company go farther and better, faster, that just gets held back because they don't know if it's safe.
Yes, they don't know if it's safe. That's great. Right. And Jana, I got to tell you, you've got a lot of fans on the show today. We're really happy to see all of them. They're saying they're looking forward to virtual happy hour at Speakfully. I feel like
we are doing that.
Yeah, we should all be invited to this virtual happy hour.
You guys are more than welcome. You both are more than welcome.
Paul, I got us invited. So Jana, talk to me about this. I mean, I know Speakfully was created in such a good place, and that you felt like you shared earlier, you were in a situation at a company where you probably didn't feel heard, or you weren't cared for, and you needed an outlet to share your feelings. You didn't feel like you had a safe place. Therefore, you came up with a company, Speakfully, to accommodate that, which I think is great because oftentimes, you'll Google a certain company and there'll be reviews saying like this intern or this employee really didn't like working there. And therefore, it might be harmful for that company, especially if they've changed leadership or whatnot, because it scars them, right, for new potential talent of employees. So with Speakfully and what you do, maybe you could share with me some of the surprises that you found from employees when they shared how they really felt. Was there any comments or any suggestions that came from your software that collected?
Yeah, so we've gotten feedback from users, and some of the interesting feedback that we have received is that a couple different things. I think the main one that we hear often is that people will go down and they have a way to track their negative experiences right within the platform, and what it's really doing is it's been very therapeutic for the users. Lots of times when you're experiencing something, you're not entirely sure what it is, if it's anything. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm overanalyzing it. So I think going in and giving them a space to go in and write about it, and continue to do that as they go along. It's been therapeutic, and it's actually made them realize maybe initially when they wrote about something, they didn't think that they would really it would be a thing. Maybe it was just something that was a one-time thing. But then they go back in and they've seen, they've written 3 different things in there where it's actually for them almost like a oh wow moment. Like, okay, maybe this is bigger than what I thought it was. And maybe, I should go to HR with this, because initially I didn't think it was anything, but now that I see it right there in an organized way with, we have some additional questions that we ask them when they write about their experiences. And so it just really helps them process. And I think it's therapeutic. And that's kind of some of the feedback that we've gotten from some of those users.
I love that, Jana. I do think so. And I think, Paul, I'd love for you to share a little bit about this. Sometimes as employees or even as employers, like a larger company, sometimes you just feel like you're not being heard, right? It's easy to get lost, especially in like some of these mega companies like we just talked about earlier with the market, right? With Google and the Facebooks of the world. It's really easy to feel like you don't really matter and you're not being heard. So in terms of contributions, how do we make sure, how do we sustain so that number one, your employees are making contributions, but they also feel good about these contributions? Paul, do you have any advice on this?
Oh, well, I could go two directions there, but I kind of want to touch on the tract about creating that space where someone can actually go themselves and kind of digest what they're experiencing. Like if I were still a head of the people in a software company, I would welcome this type of thing, because this allows for somebody to start going through things, maybe see a pattern, like you said, and instead of just pushing it away, because we're really good at just going, oh, it won't happen again. Oh, it won't happen again. It won't happen again. And by the time it really happens, now we just blow up. If we could actually see that pattern and then use that as a cue to go, no, I'm going to take good forward vulnerable action and say, hey, this isn't working for me. Could we please do this a different way? Now in doing that, you're creating a vulnerable workplace that actually solves maybe a relational problem way ahead of time before it costs your company in the real bad way. And so I think from a cultural standpoint, creating that transparent set of communication is a phenomenal concept. And so the other side of where I was gonna thing was when you asked the question was, what really makes somebody get invested and really be in that space is if they're living from their values. Because when people do that in their strengths, they're not coming out of a fear base. Like right now, we're already going into work in a massive fear base. Hey, look, we're told don't go within 6 feet of each other. You're going to die. And well, that's not very helpful from the standpoint of a positive brain. So if you can get focused into your and realize your strengths and your values and stay working from there, you're naturally going to have a happier, better output, and you're going to feel like you matter at that point because you're not even in your own personal conflict. And you're going to do better, and somebody's going to realize that, and then they're going to see you in a positive space, which can only help you keep going farther, better, and faster.
Absolutely. So really powerful, Paul. I love that. Sort of we need to seek out that. We need to seek out an environment that matches our value system. And I can't emphasize that enough. I think we've seen that time and time and again where people who don't feel heard, don't feel appreciated, feel like they're in toxic environments. And it sort of happens too often. And, life is quite short. We talked about how many hours, you work. You should enjoy the people that you're around. You should trust them with your values and their values so that you're more aligned. And I think one of the things I'm super grateful for at my own workplace, I've had the same business partner now for over 20 years. And I don't think we've ever fought. And I think it's because, like we said, we are very different people, completely different people, but our value system is the same. Our moral compass is the same. We know right from wrong, and we know that we decide and choose right. And so most of my team has been with me 10 plus years as well. And for that same reason is that you're something that you have in common. One thing that I love to talk about, because this has been a lot in the news, we've read a lot about this, is what happened with Ellen and her show, and we want to look at it as an opportunity on how to grow from there. When we look at the Ellen show, a lot of news coming out talking about how, the employees didn't feel like they were heard. They didn't feel like they could make eye contact. They felt in some ways like they were victims, right? Jana, talk to me about this. Obviously, I'm guessing, I'm from what I know, I think they would have definitely benefited from having Speakfully at the workplace, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, so number one, it obviously, and I'm sure they know this, and this is something that everybody knows, but it is not going to be something that they can fix overnight. It is definitely going to be a process. So regardless of whether they have, a tool like Speakfully there or not, it still takes time. But what I will say, a tool like Speakfully, I think, one of the things that we provide is some real-time data and analytics that they wouldn't otherwise have, that kind of gives them some insight into what is happening. I think a lot of times now organizations, something like this happens, an event of some sort, like a not good one in the press or on social media or whatever it might be. Something like this happens, and then you see them all being reactive to it because they have to be. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to be more proactive about it and be able to get some real-time data and analytics to get in front of it? And so that's what organizations need to do, is because a lot of times they say now that they had no idea any of this was going on. And maybe they didn't, or maybe they did. Regardless, wouldn't it be nice to actually know that and have some real data to be able to show you that this could be coming? You need to act on this.
Right.
And so that's kind of, for them, unfortunately, they're being reactive, but at the same time, it's not unfixable. It takes time.
Well, Jana, great point there. So, having that real-time data, getting in front of it, having it not creep up on you after years of this occurring. How do you come from this, Paul? I know this is a environment that you shine. You're really good at going in there and coaching people, executives, on creating a more positive environment. If you had this sort of data, Paul, where would you start?
Oh, I would be, especially during high stress moments, and especially, clarification, it's anonymized, and in case there was a retaliatory space, it does not make that available, which I believe that is the case. But as a senior leader, I would want to know this, not so that I could do a CYOA or have a reactionary stopgap, but to go, oh, we're kind of losing the care component in our company in this space. The love has gone way down, and we're seeing this trend. So let's go figure out what we're missing at this point and use those steps to remediate it. And that way you can avert a bunch of fallout. And more importantly, you could just always be gauging things and moving the needle upward. You can use that data as a space to go, oh, we can be even better. And as opposed to, oh, I could lose my shorts on this if everything goes south. And so
exactly,
spinning it into or reframe, not spinning, I'll use reframe, reframing it for a growth space versus a fear space.
Okay, I love that. So Paul, reframing as a growth space versus a fear space. So if you are a business owner and this is quite a big issue that you're working with, your publicist is going bananas because all the media wants to talk about it. But where do you start? Do you start with the employees first? Do you start with the C-level execs, the heads of the company first? I mean, let's talk about from a positive model. How do we fix it if this were to happen in a small way?
Senior leadership first, C-level straight out the gate. Well, get vulnerable, fess up, get over it, get over yourself more than likely, and go. No, I like to use this term. It's a company. It's not an organization. It's a company, which means this company, it's full of people. You invite company to your house and you want that to be a great place. Otherwise, they don't want to come back. Well, that's your work. And if you've been a place where they don't want to go to it, they're going there because I got to get a paycheck. That's on you. That doesn't, the buck doesn't stop with your employees there. It's on you to actually set that bar, to live those values throughout. And so,
okay, well, let's just pivot a little bit. Let's get back to the topic of pandemic. I mean, many of us are running companies or working at companies, doing so from the comfort of our own home, but feeling more and more disconnected, right? So this model, we know a lot of companies such as Twitter, we've seen Facebook, a lot of tech companies have said, employees won't need to go back to their traditional workplace this year and possibly for most of 2021. Is this sustainable? Are there things that really, it's been 6+ months. So even though it was kind of bumpy along the road, I think we're getting more used to this routine. That doesn't necessarily mean there isn't like more work that could be done, more growth that could occur. Maybe we can make this type of work arrangement even more positive and take it to a place where productivity wins, employee satisfaction wins, and so many other positives that have that capacity, right? So actually, I'm going to come back to you, Paul, because I think this is an area that I love for you to touch upon. How we're working right now, is it sustainable? And if you are running a business and watching us today, what are things that you might challenge that these might be some things you might want to think about to take it to that next level?
What's clear is because we don't get the convenience of going into the same office and just hanging out. I mean, that is flat out there. And then people get to leave. My understanding is, and Mark Crowley posted this the other day, 54% of people right now wish they could go back to their office. And I'm not saying to go back there and that's the only place they want to work, but to make sure that they could have that kind of contact. And since we're not going to have that right now, that means we have to take the extra effort. And luckily, I mean, the technology we have right now is great. We're sitting here talking to each other like, hey, we're hanging out in the same room. And no, it's not the same room, and we could really fret about that, but that's where we are. I was on a call with somebody in India 2 days ago, like we're right next to each other, and we've been doing that for a while. So it's putting that extra effort, being creative, learning how to play the social games you might do out anywhere, poking fun, ribbing, saying hi. And in the office, you might just go over and go, hey, how was your kid's party the other day? And what we intend to do in our meeting spaces is, oh, I need a business reason to call somebody and talk to somebody. Therefore, I'm just going to hold off. I'm going to sit here in my home office and be isolated. The truth is, no, you can still reach out, just ping somebody and go, hey, your kid was doing this. How'd they do? Maybe it was a spelling bee, because you can do that online without not like a baseball team. But doing those things that keep us connected and reaching out. I mean, we did this years ago, like before all this internet stuff. We wrote letters, we made phone calls, we waved at people across the street. Now we're just going to wave across the Zoom or the Teams or the Google Meet. We have to do that stuff.
We have to do that stuff. I think it's so true. Janet, obviously you have your employees, and then one of the things that I know that you do well is you have employees everywhere. And, this is sort of an area that you were very comfortable going into because it didn't really change your work environment that much.
Right.
What do you hope that companies come away with having gone through this experience? Do you think it'll force us to be better at communication? Because I feel like, it was one thing if there was an issue or there's a problem, you could just walk over to another desk or a cubicle and say, hey, I just want to make sure this is what you were saying. But now it's like literally, maybe it's a message on Slack, but you sort of have to be between the lines, which I think can cause problems, right?
Problems. It can be hard. Yeah. And I think that it ultimately at the end of the day, it should make the communication better, but you're going to find out one way or the other if you're doing it well or not doing it well. Because I think that if employees don't feel, again, what we were talking about earlier, people reaching out and, asking them questions or not having, it could be any kind of communication. It doesn't, like he was saying, it doesn't have to be about work related. One of the things that we do at our weekly stand up with the entire team is, have a random question of the day. I like to have fun and include humor in as much as possible, because I feel like that again shows some vulnerability, but it makes light of the situation that we're in sometimes, because, it can get hard and it can get tough and it can get really monotonous. So it's just being able to break that up with your employees, be able to have fun, be able to joke with them, still be on video so you can see people's reactions. There's so many things that you can still do. Like we're doing a virtual happy hour next week. And we're going to start doing that monthly. There's just so many things that we're continuing to add into what we're doing just to, keep that connection there. Even though we've always been remote. So it hasn't been something where we're in an office, but we have people all over the country, all 4 different time zones.
Right.
All different time zones.
Interestingly, though, everybody's now remote, but now they have also the added pressure of coronavirus. And that still exists. And so this becomes like on the sustainability side, no, we have to be more conscious. You know, what we, you ever seen the study of the basketball? They tell you to count the basketball passes. And there's a guy in a gorilla suit that runs right in the middle of all the people passing the basketball. And they're like, so how many people saw the gorilla? And like, what gorilla? It's because it's a funny study, but what we focus on is what we see. And so we do have to be conscious in this. If we're going to, it's going to be different no matter what. So sustainability is interesting. Sustainability of what's to come is actually more along the lines. And we get a choice to make this better instead of worse.
I love this. And today's discussion is just about that. We might not have the answers for everything, but we should be asking these questions. And I think we need to take pause consistently and sit back and think, wow, what am I going through right now? How am I communicating with my team members? What can I continue to carry on? And what are the opportunities to improve so that, you know, if one of your employees is having a rough day, like today, we actually had a team meeting with my team. And I said something, you know, it'd be really great if we could do this and this and have these things happen together. And then my employee who is leading one of the projects, I could hear in her voice, she was just saying, like that, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed just by thinking of this. And we had a pause, but it's great because when you're tuned in, you're actually hearing. Because it would be really easy to continue move on with the agenda and keep moving. But like, hold on, what just happened right now? Are you stressed out? We need to talk about this. Let's set up another call with us and let's figure this out. But I do think that as employers, certainly we're more challenged right now, right? I mean, for many of us, we're having to make those tough financial decisions, maybe layoffs, maybe getting rid of business space, maybe, you know, doing hard decisions. But that doesn't take away the responsibility that we have to our businesses, our teams, and our clients, don't forget, and our customers, to be better listeners. Paul, I'm just curious, do you have, when you're working with businesses of all sizes, obviously C-level executives, and you work with an executive who isn't a very good listener, what are some things that you might instill or exercises that you might have them practice? Are there anything that you do in that area?
I go to the feels side first because the rational argument's never going to work in that situation. You know, hey, if you did this, this might work out better. And that's like, oh no. And it's like, all right, skip that. That's not going to go anywhere. Funny, I think of some of the mistakes I've made on that one. But if you take the time and to help them get into a space where they can feel what maybe their employees are feeling, and then draw a bridge line for them to see that and feel that, then they have a chance to go, oh. And that aha moment is what actually gets them into their growth space. And like I say, judgment, hey, you're sucking right now, you should do this, is, well, because I'm a coach and I think that usually triggers the non-response. I'll try to get them into a space where they can understand, see, and feel it. And at that point, then they can go, oh, well, how do I change this? And then we go into their strengths so they can find a way to do something different and better. Because the truth is, everything has to be different before it's better. And when we're in fear, we don't like different at all. So it's getting them into that feeling and going towards empathy. Because once they have empathy, then they can move into compassion, which is simply taking empathy and making it real time and in the outcomes.
I love that. Actually, Get It Here on Periscope said that actually right before you, Paul, the importance of empathy. And we hear that a lot being thrown around, more so now, you know, given all the things that are going on with the world. I mean, pandemic aside, talk about, there's a lot of like buzzkills out there, right? I mean, if you read the news, I'm finding, like yesterday, I found the news just too overwhelming. I think there's days where you're just like, I just need to do a detox of news because it's just too much. And I know many of us are feeling that way. We're dealing with the pandemic, where, like Paul said, you're really worried about dying, right? And if you go out when you're like, within 6 feet, someone, you might die. And then Jana, you talked about too. And then you're on top of it, you're worried about your employees being happy at work, that they feel still productive and they feel cared for, and all the things that you work really hard to build within your entity. Even myself as a business owner, I'm like, I wonder if my employees still feel the love as much as they did before. I just want to make sure they still feel good. And sometimes that concern, as my business partner told me today, he's like, sometimes you own it too much, meaning you worry too much about how they feel. I don't always think that's a bad thing sometimes, but sometimes it can be, right? Anything is not a good thing.
If you boy, this is so common to hear. I was told many times in my career, you need to stop leading like a woman. And it's just like, come on, man. But the truth is, if you
they need our tool, they need Speakfully.
They needed it.
They need Speakfully.
Really, really bad. I needed Speakfully really bad.
Right.
I might have found out a better way to deal with it, actually, just because I could have processed it.
Yeah,
right.
But it's what was the question again? I'm sorry.
It's how do you continue to show your employees love? How do you continue? Because what if this is another year?
When is it too much to be empathetic? So I don't believe you can show them too much love, but the thing is to have the empathy and the love, but draw the boundaries. And that's the thing, because you can go empathetic to the point where you stop.
Yes.
Because it's too much. Like you say, you drew a boundary and said, this news is so not cool, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you take a break. Well, guess what? It's okay to take a break and then say, okay, I got to get back to fixing this. But right now, I let myself get to a place where I paralyzed myself with empathy. How the hell did I do that? But so giving yourself a break, recoup, because we need that time to rebuild even inside emotionally, and then go back to it. And then instead of going back to it as a sole person or alone, pull some people in that have strengths in areas where maybe they're not your strengths. Approach it that way, because let's just face it, it's easier to solve a problem when 3 people are in it together.
That's so true. As my 7-year-old son will remind us all, teamwork makes the dream work. And certainly today, let me tell you, my friends, today you guys got the dream work for sure. And what I will share with you, which I love, and this is sort of the first time this has ever happened, where I had 2 guests who didn't know each other actually connected with each other on social. And then Paul reached out and said, hey, let's jump on a Zoom before we go on Winnie's show. Brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, we're best friends now.
Actually, okay, let me add to that. If I may, let me add to that really quick. This is the reality. So we just actually created a space of belonging right here. And that was, Winnie's initiation. And now we all came together with a better way now to learn things, to get through things, and we feel better. At least I feel better hanging out with you guys. Hopefully it's the same. But it's the same way, and that's over social. I mean, we can, so the sustainability, go back to that one. We can be sustainable. And no, it's not going to be maybe ideal, but it is sustainable, and we can build these relationships. And that means if we can do it here in just this quick little moment, people can do that in their companies. That's going to change the game.
I love that. Did you hear, everybody? It's sustainable. Although we don't love it, but we can sustain this and we can continue those connections. Amazing. Let's take a moment for those of you who are watching and you want to kind of keep in touch with you both. Jana, where do they keep track of you? Where do they go to? We're actually going to share Speakfully's website, but where's the best place for people to connect to you?
Connect to me probably through LinkedIn. They can message me on LinkedIn, Jana Morrin, or they can go to the Speakfully at Speakfully on LinkedIn. But yeah, the website is right here, www.speakfully.com. And yeah, that's how they can best get a hold of us.
Yes, and she is giving out everybody a 30-day free trial, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jana, for doing that.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Paul, my good friend Paul, I know how to get in touch with him because I get to talk to him every week. But how do people get to work with you, Paul? How do they learn more about you? And obviously, if you are running a large company that could use a chief of people, let me tell you, this is someone that you'll want to have on speed dial.
You can get to me on Twitter at Paul Haury, and LinkedIn which is not at Paul Haury, but Paul Haury. You can get to me on my website, heartbasedleading.com, and just email me, paul@heartbasedleading.
Well, that was easy. You made it too easy, Paul.
Sorry.
And by the way, they're really cute dogs too.
Yeah, Gracie's she's out somewhere else right now.
Oh.
She's using my little office mate.
Well,
she's the one in the back of the picture there.
Yeah, well, it's her office, not really your office. Just
yeah.
But thank you all so much. I want to say a quick shout out. My friends, let's do a quick shout out to some of our friends because so many wonderful people joining us. Let's say big, huge hello to the one and only Brian Schumann on LinkedIn, Robin Stevens, on Periscope. So awesome to see you. 211 Nad, we are seeing you on Periscope. And let's keep going. Let's see who we've got. My good friend Get It Hair, who is joining us. It's always wonderful to see you as always. Jones GP, so great to see all of you. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much to join me to learn from these two professionals, the experts, and two just really great humans. And I'm going to say thank you to my friend Jacob for introducing Jana to me as well. And thank you to Twitter for bringing Paul and I together and becoming lifelong friends now. It's a fact, Paul. I think so. We'll just make a point of it. But Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderful to have you both, and hopefully we can have you on again another time.
Absolutely.
But I feel good. I feel like what you've shared today is going to make my business a little bit better, and certainly a lot happier and a little bit more loving. So I hope that is the same with you and your business. For those of you who are watching, thank you so much. Take a moment, if you don't mind, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Winnie Sun TV. And if this was helpful in any way, we would love to get feedback and questions from you, because we are answering your questions tomorrow live on the show, same time, around 1:30, 4:30 Eastern. And we love to hear from you because we do this because we care. And so thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Take care now.